May 5th. Gramps died during the night. The day after tomorrow, Dr. Blank from the university is going to take Tim and Alex and me to the airport, and we'll fly to his funeral. It seems unbelievable that I will never see Gramps again. I wonder what has happened to him. I hope he's not just cold and dead. I can't bring myself to think of Gramps' body being eaten by worms and maggots. I just can't bear to think that. Maybe the embalming fluid they use just causes the body to disintegrate into dust. Oh, I surely hope so. May 8th. I couldn't believe that was Gramps lying in the casket. It was just a tired, drained skeleton covered by skin. Oh, I've seen dead frogs and birds and lizards and Easter chickens. But this was such a shock. It seems unreal. It was almost like a bad trip. I'm so grateful I never had a bummer. But maybe if my first trip had been, I wouldn't have taken any more. In that respect, I wish it had. Gran seemed so calm and loving. She had one arm around my shoulder and one around Alexandria's. Precious, strong Gran. Even during the long funeral, she didn't cry. She just sat there with her head bowed. It was a strange, almost eerie thing, but I felt as though Gramps was there beside her. I talked to Tim about it later, and he felt exactly the same way. When they lowered Gramps' body into the ground, that was the worst part. That was positively the worst part in the whole world. Alexandria and I cried, even though none of the rest of the family did. I tried to be as strong and controlled as they are, but I just simply couldn't. Mom and Gran and Dad dabbed their eyes occasionally, and Tim kept sniffing, and of course Alex is a little girl, but me, well, naturally I made a spectacle of myself again. May 9th. Gran is going home with us tonight, and she'll stay till school is out. Then I'll come back with her and help her get organized to move in with us until she can find a little apartment close by. I don't know when I have ever been so tired in my life. I can't even imagine how Gran holds up because I can barely move. All of us look as though we have been endlessly ill. Even little Alex is dragging. I wonder how long it will take us to adjust to life without Gramps. Will we ever be the same? How will dear precious Gran manage? When she gets into her new apartment, I'm going to stay with her often and take her to the movies and go on long walks with her and things. May 12th. This morning I looked out the window and saw new green popping through the soil, and I started crying uncontrollably again. I don't really understand the resurrection. I can't even conceive how Gramps' body will decay and sour and mold and mildew and fall into crumbling little bits can ever come back together again. But I can't understand how a brown, dried-up, shriveled gladiolus bulb can reblossom either. I guess that God can put atoms and molecules and bodies together again if gladiolus bulb without even a brain can do it. This really makes me feel a lot better, and I don't know how I can ever expect to understand death when I can't even understand television or electricity or even stereo for that matter. In fact, I understand so little, I don't know how I even exist. I once read somewhere that man uses less than a tenth, I think, of his brain capacity. Imagine having 90% more thinking ability and using every bit of it. That would be simply glorious. Imagine what a perfectly marvelous planet this would be if minds were 10 times more efficient than they are now. May 14th. I had a nightmare last night about Gramps' body all filled with maggots and worms, and I thought about what would happen if I should die. Worms don't make distinction under the ground. They wouldn't care that I'm young and that my flesh is solid and firm. Thank goodness Mom heard me moaning and came in and helped me get a hold of myself. Then we went and got some hot milk, but I was still crawling and I couldn't tell her what had happened. I'm sure she thought it had something to do with the times I ran away, but I couldn't tell her because this was even more horrible. I was still shivering after the milk, so we both put on shoes and walked around the yard. It was chilly, even with our robes over our night clothes, but we talked about a lot of things, including my becoming a social worker or something in that area, and Mom is very pleased that I want to help other people. She is very understanding. Everybody should be as lucky as I am. May 15th. I have to force myself to concentrate in school. I didn't know that death took so much out of people. I feel completely drained still and have to force myself into everything I do. May 16th. Dad took me into an anti-war rally at the university. He is very worried and upset about the students and talked to me as though I were an adult. I really enjoyed it. Daddy is not as worried about the militant students, who he thinks should be dealt with very harshly, as he is about the kids who could easily be led into wrong thinking. I'm worried about them too. I'm worried about me. Later, we went over to see Dr. Blank, who is also really concerned about the younger generation. He talked a lot about where kids are going, and then he rattled off some statistics that really surprised me. I can't remember half of what he said. He talked so fast, but there were things like 1,000 college-age students commit suicide every year, and another 9,000 try to. VD has gone up 25% among kids my age, and pregnancies are really growing, even with the pill. He also said that crime and mental illness among kids has skyrocketed. In fact, everything he said was worse than the thing before it. When we left, I didn't know whether I felt better about what I've done because so many other people are caught up in the same thing, or worse, because everybody's going crazy at once. But to tell you the truth, I really don't think the kids can be blamed for screwing up. At least not entirely. The adults don't seem to be doing much better. In fact, I can't think of one person I'd like to see as president except Dad, who'd never get elected with me for a daughter. May 19th. Well, I got blasted out the water again today. Someone put a joint in my purse, and I was so scared. I had to cut my next class and take a cab over to Dad's office. I just don't understand why they won't leave me alone. Why are they hassling me like this? Does my existence make them nervous? I really think it does. I really think they are trying to wipe me off the face of the earth or send me to the nut house. It's like I've uncovered a giant spy ring and I can't be allowed to live anymore. Dad said I have to be strong and adult. He talked to me for a long time, and I'm really grateful that he cares, but I know he doesn't understand their motivations any better than I do. Besides, he doesn't know about Richie and Lane and all the rest. He said the whole family is behind me, but what good does that do when the whole world is against me? It's like Gramps dying. Everybody feels really terrible about it, but nobody can do anything, including me. May 20th. I've managed to get myself into the study grind again, which helps. At least it keeps my mind off you know what. May 21st. Gran is sick, but Mom thinks it's just the letdown. I hope so, because she really looks terrible. Oh, I almost forgot. Dad has gotten permission for me to use the university library, and today I went over for the first time. It's really fun. I felt very sophisticated, and a lot of kids think I'm a co-ed. Isn't that funny? May 22nd. I met a boy in the library today. His name is Joel Reams, and he's a freshman. We studied together, and then he walked me over to Daddy's office. Daddy was busy, so he sat on the front steps of his building and waited for him. I decided not to pretend to Joel, but just to tell the truth about myself and let him take it or leave it. Well, almost the truth. I told him I was only 16 and just had library privileges because of my dad. He's really a very sweet guy, because he just laughed and said that it was all right because he hadn't planned to ask to marry me this semester anyway. When Dad came out, he sat on the steps for a while, and the three of us talked like we had known each other always. It was great. Before Joel left, he asked me when I'd be studying again, and I said that I spent my entire waking hours studying, which seemed to please him. May 23rd. Dear Daddy, I guess I should be mad at him, but I'm not. He went and looked up Joel's record and told me all about him. I really got a kick out of the idea of Dad sneaking around the files getting information for me. Anyway, Joel is an accelerated student who is in the university, though he's only 18 years old, barely. His dad is dead, and his mother works in a factory, and he works a 7-hour shift every day at the school as a janitor. He works from midnight till 7 every morning. Then his first class is at 9 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. What a schedule. Dad warned me not to interfere with his studies, and I said I wouldn't. However, if he wants to walk me from the library to Dad's office every afternoon, even Saturdays, I can't see what that could hurt, can you? Evening. Joelle did walk me to Dad's office, and it was almost like a date. Our words scrambled out all together, and we laughed and chattered both at the same time. It was very chaotic and very lovely. Joelle says he's never had much time for girls, and he doesn't understand how I seem to know so much about him. I told him that women are very perceptive, that's all, and crafty. May 25th. Joelle walked me over to Dad's office again tonight, and it wasn't my idea, but Dad invited him over for dinner tomorrow. Mother said it's fine with her, and I know she's anxious to meet him because Daddy has been teasing me about him. May 26th. I raced home from school and helped Mom clean the house like the king of the world was coming, and I made sure we had all the ingredients for orange yeast rolls, my one specialty. I can't wait. Later, Joelle just left, and it was a fantastic evening. I don't know why I say that because he and Daddy spend most of the time together. I guess it's just because his dad died when he was 7, but they really had a nice relationship. Even Tim seemed fascinated while they talked, particularly about Joelle's educational possibilities. I think Tim is starting to think about college already. My orange rolls were perfection. Even Gran said she couldn't have made them better, and Joelle ate 7. 7! And he said he had taken a pocketful home for breakfast if there had been any left over. Of course, if there had been any left over, I'm sure he wouldn't have mentioned it. He's pretty reserved. I think I'll ask Mom if I can make him a batch and have him pick them up at Dad's office. May 29th. Oh, diary, guess what? Dad had absolutely the most wonderful news to tell us at dinner, and he did it very nonchalantly. He's going to try to get Joelle a scholarship. He says he's pretty sure he can do it, but it will take time, and he doesn't want me to say anything until it's all settled. I hope I can get my big mouth shut. I'm not very good at that kind of thing. P.S. Things seem okay at school. Nobody's talking to me, but nobody's hassling me either. I guess you can't have everything. June 1st. Gran's house was sold today, and they've decided just to have the movers pack all our things and put them in storage. She broke down and cried when she heard the news. It's the first time I've really seen her cry. I guess Gramps being gone, and now the house which she lived in almost all her life makes everything seem final. Later. I wonder if Joelle really likes me. I wonder if he thinks I'm cute or pretty or attractive. I wonder if I seem like the kind of girl who would mean something serious to him. I hope he likes me because I like him a lot. In fact, I think I really love him. Mrs. Joelle Reams. Mrs. Joelle Reams. Mr. and Mrs. Joelle Reams. Dr. and Mrs. Joelle Reams. Doesn't that look lovely? June 2nd. Mrs. Larson just called and said that Jan had promised to babysit, but she called last minute and canceled, which sounds just like Jan. Oh well, I guess I can study there as well as I can here. Gotta pack my things together. See ya later. PM. Dear Diary, I'm really dragged and tired and sad and worn out and fed up. Jan came by about a half an hour after Mrs. Larson left, and she said she wanted to babysit because she needed the break. But I couldn't let her because she was stoned and Mrs. Larson's baby is only 4 months old. But she wouldn't leave, so I finally had to call her parents and ask them to come get her. I told them she was sick, but by the time they got there, she was really grieving. She had the stereo on loud enough to wake the baby, who was wet and crying anyway. But I didn't dare even change her because I wasn't sure what Jan might do. She was so high her mom and dad had to practically pull her out to the car. And they were both crying and asking me not to tell her parole officer. Oh, I hope I did the right thing. I probably shouldn't have called her parents, but I really couldn't get her out of there, and I surely couldn't have left her with the baby. I can just imagine what it's going to be like in school tomorrow when this gets around. Bam! Nobody's even going to listen to my side. And besides, dopers don't understand things like hurting babies. They don't understand anything. June 3rd. Mom and Dad said I did exactly what I should have last night, and they were sorry they had not been available to help me. But what could they have done besides call Jan's parents? Actually, it might have been even worse if they'd been there. Who knows? Gotta go now. PM. Jan passed me in the hall today, and there was bitterness and hostility in her face like I have never seen before. I'll get even with you, you fucking Miss Polly Pure. she said, and she practically screamed it out in front of everyone. I tried to explain, but she turned and walked away as though I didn't even exist. Later, I went to the library. Joel knew something was wrong, so finally I told him I'm coming down with a cold and feel miserable. The feeling miserable part is true. He said I should take some aspirin and get some rest. Life is so simple for straight people. I don't know what Jan has told all the kids, but she really must be starting some ugly rumors because now I get sneers and giggles, which is worse than being lonely and ignored. I wish I could talk to Joel, but I'm not even going to the library to study. I'm so uptight. I'll just take some books home and work in my room. My room will be my whole universe. Joel just called from the library because he was worried about me. He had talked to Dad's secretary, who didn't know anything. I'm so glad he called, but I told him I was sick and wouldn't be going to the library this week. Oh, I am sick. I'm sick of the screwed up potheads and acid heads and all the other dopey dopers who are persecuting me. Anyway, Joel asked if I'd mind if he called me every night. And I didn't tell him that I'd be waiting by the phone, but I will be. But you knew that, didn't you? June 7th. During the night, Gran got quite sick. I think she just doesn't care to go on without Gramps. She didn't come out of her room for breakfast. I took her a tray, but she just played around with the food. Tonight, I must go in and visit her instead of going to the library like I'd finally decided to do. Joel will understand. Bye now. June 8th. I am so boxed in, I don't know what to do. Jan sidled up to me, and I was walking down the ramp and whispered, "You better tell your little-tailed wagging sister not to accept candy from strangers, or even from friends, especially your friends." But Jan wouldn't do that. She couldn't. No matter what she thinks of me, she surely wouldn't take it out on Alexandria. Would she? Would she? I wish I could make her understand, but I simply don't know how. Oh, I would like to talk to Mom and Dad, or Joel or Tim about this, but everything I do seems to make things worse. I guess I'll have to work it into a dinner conversation some way about vindictive kids who put acid on candy and gum, etc., and pass them out. Maybe if I tell them that a teacher was talking about a kid in Detroit who died that way, they'd be careful. They've got to be careful. June 9th. I was walking home from the store, and a carload of kids pulled up beside me and began shouting things like, "Well, if it isn't Easy Lay Mary Pure. No, it's Miss Fink Mouth. Miss Super Fink Mouth. Miss Double Triple Fink Mouth. I wonder what would happen if we stashed some shit in her old man's car. Wouldn't that be great having her father, the professor, picked up?" Then they called me every rotten name in the book and roared off laughing hysterically, leaving me emotionally crushed and battered and beaten. I think they're just threatening me, trying to drive me crazy, but who knows? Last summer, I read about some stoned kids who put a cat in a washing machine and turned it on just to see what would happen. Maybe they really would like to know how Dad would react. They're such a bunch of lousy, crazy bastards, I wouldn't put it past them. But I don't think that they'll go that far. Maybe if I just sort of ignore them, they will eventually give up. June 10th. For the first time, I feel absolutely certain that even if I were locked in a room full of acid, speed, and every other upper in the world, I would only be disgusted, for I see what it does to kids who used to be my friends. Surely they wouldn't pick on me so unmercifully if it weren't for drugs, would they? Today, someone put a burning roach in my locker, and when the principal called me out of my room, even he knew I wouldn't do anything that stupid. My new jacket has a big hole in it, and some loose papers had caught on fire and smoked everything all up. He asked me to name anyone I thought who might have done it, and although I suspect Jan, I wouldn't dare tell on her, and I certainly don't want to name all the dopers at school. I'd be a fine one to point fingers. Besides, they'd probably kill me. I'm really afraid. June 11th. I'm so grateful school'll be out soon, and next year maybe I can go to school in Seattle and live with Aunt Janine and Uncle Arthur. I do wish Gran hadn't sold her house, but as sick as she is, I guess I couldn't have lived there either. P.S. I went to the library at the university, and Joel and I sat out on the lawn for a while, but things just aren't the same. Every day, everything seems to get a little worse. I wish Joel could have been Dad's son, and that I might have never been born. June 12th. Tonight is the dance, but naturally I won't go. Even George, who used to take me out, now looks at me with disdain or passes me by without even seeing me. Apparently, the rumors are growing. I just can't even imagine what they are saying or how to stop them. I think the Old Grass Gang is trying to drive me completely insane, and they are almost succeeding. Today, Mom and I were in the market, and we met Marcy and her mom. While they stopped to talk, Marcy turned to me and said, with a beautiful smile on her face, "Tonight we're having a party, and this is your last chance." I said, "No, thank you," as calmly as I could, but I thought I was going to choke. Her mother was standing about 2 inches from her. Then she smiled just as sweetly and said, "You might as well come because we're going to get you anyway." Can you believe it? A 15-year-old girl from an educated, respected family couldn't be threatening another girl in public, not in the nice, precise vegetable department. I thought I was going to lose my mind. That right then and there, my mind was going to fall out on the floor and dissolve. On the way home, Mom commented about me being so quiet. Then she asked why I didn't get nice Marcy Green to fix me up every now and then. Nice Marcy Green? Ha! Maybe I am losing my mind. Maybe these things really aren't happening. June 16th. Gran died in her sleep last night. I tried to tell myself that she's gone to Gramps, but I'm so depressed all I can think about is worms eating her body. Empty eye sockets with whole colonies of writhing maggots. I can no longer eat. The whole house is crazy with everyone worrying about the funeral. Poor Mom. 2 parents in 2 months. How can she stand it? I think I'd die if I lost my parents right now. I've been trying to help her and to make things easier, but I'm so exhausted I have to force myself to take every step. June 17th. Joel heard about Gran dying and called to tell me how sorry he was. He really gave me a lot of strength and offered to come over tomorrow after the funeral. I'm so glad he's coming. I'm going to need him.